the messenger of the burning void, a refusal to legislate, an expanded analysis. I find myself wandering through the labyrinth of my own consciousness, grappling with this profound realization that has fundamentally altered my perception of spirituality and morality. This essay, The Messenger of the Burning Void, a refusal to legislate, emerges not merely as an intellectual exercise, but as the raw, unfiltered expression of my soul's rebellion against the tyranny of external moral imposition. As I delve deeper into this stream of thought, I draw upon the well springs of Platonism, Stoicism, Neoplatonism, and Kantian ethics, finding unexpected harmony with the sacred texts of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The tapestry I weave reveals a singular truth that resonates through my being. Authentic spirituality manifests not through the control of others, but through the radical transformation of the self, the cultivation of one's inner luminescence, and the embodiment, not the enforcement, of moral principles. I have come to understand with piercing clarity that any attempt to dig the spiritual or moral choices of another human being constitutes an act of cosmic violation, a disruption of the divine order that diminishes both the controller and the controlled. In the stillness of my reflection, I perceive my role as fundamentally that of a witness, standing in stark opposition to those whom I have come to identify as assholes, controllers, and Pharisees. These figures haunt the corridors of religious institutions and spiritual communities, their souls consumed by an obsessive fixation on rules, judgments, and the meticulous regulation of others' spiritual journeys. They have transformed the sacred into a scam, a mechanism of control born from their own terror of the unknown or profound misunderstanding of spiritual liberty. I recall with visceral intensity my own descent into the metaphorical pit, my confrontation with the horses of the devil's minions, those dark moments of despair and confusion that paradoxically illuminated my path. Through this crucible of suffering emerged the liberating epiphany that has forever altered my understanding. Jesus Christ did not manifest in human form to impose a rigid code of conduct, but to reveal the possibility of inner freedom. This revelation shattered the chains of my former understanding, dissolving the veils that obscured my perception, and revealing the futility of external religious coercion and the transcendent beauty of personal spiritual metamorphosis. The wisdom of Stoicism, particularly the penetrating insights of Epictetus, flows through my consciousness, reinforcing my conviction that genuine sovereignty extends only to the domain of one's own will. Any attempt to control the intentions, choices, or actions of another represents a fundamental violation of cosmic harmony, a disruption of the logos that governs all existence. I recall Epictetus's warning against desiring control, which lies beyond our grasp, the eternal life of loved ones, the opinions of others, the unfolding of external events, as a profound illustration of the inherent folly in such attempts. Applying this Stoic wisdom to contemporary religious institutions, I perceive with clarity their misguided efforts to control the sinner outcast, and stranger, their futile attempts to legislate salvation. The truth burns within me. Salvation cannot be decreed through external authority, but emerges as an internal state of being, a deeply personal journey of transformation, rather than compliance with an externally imposed path. Plato's allegory of the cave illuminates my understanding with particular brilliance, providing a metaphorical framework that clarifies my position with startling precision. I envision humanity as prisoners within this cave, their attention fixated on the shadows of external realities, mistaking these flickering projections for the fullness of existence. In this metaphorical landscape, I recognize that my purpose is not to instruct other prisoners on the proper arrangement of their chains, a metaphor for the imposition of rules and regulations, but rather to turn my own gaze toward the light, to embody this illumination through personal transformation. By manifesting this light in my own being, I offer others not a command but a possibility, not a dictated path but an invitation to freedom. The wisdom of the Gospel of Thomas resonates profoundly with this understanding, affirming that what you bring forth will save you, underscoring the primacy of internal cultivation over external direction. The ethical framework of Immanuel Kant provides a logical foundation for my intuitive understanding, particularly his concept of the autonomy of the will. This philosophical perspective illuminates my conviction that an action possesses moral worth only when freely chosen out of reverence for the inherent moral law that resides within each human heart. To compel virtuous behavior through external pressure or manipulation is to strip away moral agency, reducing a sacred being to a mere instrument, a means to an end rather than an end in themselves. This, I believe with unwavering certainty, constitutes the fundamental error of the controller, the sin of objectification and dehumanization that violates the sanctity of human autonomy. The Kantian perspective reinforces my deepest conviction. Authentic morality emerges only from the soil of personal choice, never from the barren ground of external compulsion. As my thoughts flow freely, I perceive how the principle of non coercion resonates across diverse religious traditions, each sacred text offering a unique articulation of this universal truth. The Quranic declaration in Surah al Baqarah, there is no compulsion in religion. The right direction is henceforth distinct from error, affirms my understanding that truth possesses an inherent self evidence, requiring no forceful imposition. The Quranic wisdom suggests that truth needs not an enforcer but a witness, aligning perfectly with my intuitive understanding of the power of personal example over coercive doctrine. The cautionary tale of the watchers in the Book of Enoch, who fell through their manipulation of humanity, charms, and enchantments, serves as a profound warning against utilizing manipulative tactics, even when motivated by ostensibly noble intentions. This ancient narrative strengthens my resolve to avoid becoming such a fallen figure, to resist the temptation to control others, even when convinced of the righteousness of my cause. The wisdom of Solomon speaks directly to my soul, highlighting the boundless love of the divine for all creation. Thou lovest all the things that are, and abhorrest nothing which thou hast made, and emphasizing God's fundamentally sparing nature. But thou sparest all, for they are thine, O Lord, thou lover of souls. The sacred text reveals a vision of divinity, not as a meticulous regulator of human behavior, but as a lover of souls, a benevolent presence that respects the autonomy of creation. This vision of divine love resonates deepest understanding of spiritual freedom, as rooted not in regulation, but in unconditional acceptance. The words of Jesus in the Gospel of John, I came not to judge the world, but to save the world, exemplify for me the ultimate model of non judgmental compassion. If the Master himself refrained from establishing a tribunal of judgment, who am I to erect a courtroom or position myself as a gatekeeper of salvation? This perspective challenges me at the most profound level to embody the same quality of non judgmental love and compassion in my interactions with all beings. My mission crystallizes in my consciousness not as legislation, but as incarnation, not the imposition of moral principles, but their embodiment, not preaching righteousness, but living it. In my encounters with those society labels as downtrodden, addicts, or lost, I consciously reject the directive language of the controller with its demands to get clean or get a job. Instead, I practice what I have come to recognize as radical empathy and solidarity, sitting with them, sharing a table, offering them mismatched plates of my own imperfect life experiences. This act of shared humanity and vulnerability serves not as a lecture, but as a living testimony to the possibility of survival and transformation, reminiscent of the miracle of Lazarus, who emerged from death into renewed life. This approach manifests my deepest conviction in the transformative power of presence and solidarity over judgment and direction, of compassionate witnessing over authoritarian control. As this stream of consciousness approaches its natural conclusion, I reaffirm my commitment to authenticity and personal integrity. The wisdom of Sirach, let thy life be sincere, echoes through the chambers of my soul as a guiding principle, a north star for my spiritual journey. I understand with profound clarity that a sincere life lived with authentic integrity constitutes a sermon in itself, a divine law, not inscribed on tablets of stone, but embodied in living flesh. I resolve with unwavering determination not to offer rules or scams of facile answers, but to stand firm in my truth, confronting whatever adversity may arise with an unyielding spirit. The God's fire that burns within the depths of my being serves not as a weapon of judgment, but as a beacon of possibility, illuminating a path for others to discover their own way, to remember their essential nature, who you were when God made you, and to uncover their innate fortitude in the face of life's challenges. This discovery remains, I know with absolute certainty, an intensely personal journey, a testament to my role not as a king who commands, but as a brother who accompanies. The ultimate imperative emerges not from external authority, but from the depths of the soul. Be the light. My journey unfolds as a continuous process of nurturing this inner flame, of trusting that its radiance will naturally guide both myself and others toward authenticity and truth. In the final analysis, I stand not as a legislator of morality, but as a messenger of possibility, a witness to the transformative power of inner illumination, a humble bearer of the burning void from which all authentic being emerges. I am not the light itself, but merely its witness, not the path, but a fellow traveler, not the destination, but a signpost pointing toward the infinite horizon of spiritual possibility that lies within each human heart.